Chapter 2. Nyla was kidnapped. On their way back to their kingdom, King Oliver challenged John, his high general, claiming he hadn't displayed the valor that was expected of him during the fight. There was a reason why John's heart wasn't in the battle. He held his duty to his king and kingdom high, but there was something else that he also held in his heart. Leah, a Holland lop rabbit who, like John, was unlike any other Holland lop rabbit. She stood taller than all the females in the Holland lop kingdom, and from the moment John set eyes on her, he had fallen head over heels for her. However, John didn't declare his love for her openly. It was a secret in his heart. During the preparation for battle, she had told John that she hated the idea of going to war with their neighbors. War brings about nothing but death and pain. Many rabbit families will suffer and lose their loved ones because King Oliver desires a doe. Her words were like cold water to John, and it woke him up, leading him to question his loyalty to King Oliver. He realized that Leah was indeed right, but he couldn't abandon his king. He decided to follow King Oliver to the battle because it was his duty, but his heart wasn't in the war. Leah's displeasure over the war was evident on her face as they marched to the Dwarf Hotot kingdom, and it only made John sour on the idea further. The Dwarf Hotot had the home advantage, my lord, John replied. They know their kingdom better than we do. King Oliver nodded, accepting this excuse from John. He mumbled about how he must get back at King Jack for the embarrassment he had suffered. John knew already that King Oliver wasn't going to accept that he had been beaten by King Jack gracefully. He was right. We need to get back at Jack, Oliver growled. Getting back at the king of the Dwarf Hotot wasn't going to be as easy as King Oliver made it out to be, but when they arrived home King Oliver began drawing up several plans for how to do it, his tail twitching continuously. John knew this was Oliver's habit when he was angry or excited. Upon reaching their kingdom, the rest of the Holland lop rabbits were sad to hear that they had lost in battle, but there was a different mood on the other side of the garden where the Dwarf Hotot resided. There, feasts and festivities took place, celebrating their victory, and the engagement of Jack and Nyla. Jack and Nyla married that night, anxious to make their nuptials official. The next morning, King Jack and the new Queen Nyla made an appearance before all the Dwarf Hotot rabbits. There were cheers of joy as they both emerged from the palace to greet the rabbits of Dwarf Hotot Kingdom. The day was declared by King Jack to be a day of celebration. All the rabbits spent the day playing in the shade of trees. King Jack and Nyla went about thanking and praising each rabbit who had joined in the battle. The event continued until the evening when all lights were turned on in the garden. All the rabbits in the kingdom gathered around lights, and they ate spring mix salad and other fresh grasses. Several songs were played, and several rabbits danced around in the colorful light. The entire kingdom was in a festive mood already when Jack rose and clapped his hands. He was about to make another announcement. Due to the music and joy in the air, it took a while for silence to sweep over the garden. While he waited, King Jack stroked his queen's ear. She blushed with joy and pride at King Jack, the hero who had fought the evil rabbit who wanted to take over their kingdom. "Good evening, dozen gentlebucks," King Jack started. "I hope you are having a good time, and once again, I wish to thank you all for playing a role in protecting our kingdom." A resounding cheer rose from the crowd, and it took a while for things to settle down so that King Jack could continue. "Yesterday we faced a surprise attack, and suffered a lot of casualties, but we are happy that we won. Now, in these dire times, my wife and I have a special announcement that I know will cheer you all." King Jack looked around, ensuring that all his rabbits were looking at him. They were all fixated on him, blinking with curiosity as to what news their beloved king had to tell them. "My beautiful Queen Nyla is pregnant, and very soon, I'm going to have an heir or several for this kingdom. I can assure you that my children will take care of you and protect every rabbit of Dwarf Hotot Kingdom just as I have done." Barely had King Jack finished his statement when cheers filled the air. The rabbits in Dwarf Hotot Kingdom were happy about the news, and they all started to make their way over to King Jack and Nyla to offer them their well wishes. Alas, no one in the Dwarf Hotot Kingdom was aware of the spy in their midst who had overheard everything that had been said. This spy was sent by none other than King Oliver, who wanted to keep watch over the Dwarf Hotot rabbits in preparation for another surprise attack on them. Oliver's armies were weak now, though, so he couldn't launch another attack right away. Without wasting time, the spy made his way all over to the Holland Kingdom, heading for the palace of King Oliver. It was none other than John who hopped back to the kingdom. As he went, he prepared himself mentally for the storm that would come when he disclosed his findings to King Oliver. Oliver wasn't going to like the news that Nyla was pregnant. Just like Leah, John was against what King Oliver was planning. He didn't like the king's behavior, but he dared not to disclose his misgivings or express them in any way. All John wanted was for harmony to exist between the kingdoms just as it always had before King Oliver had declared war. Upon arriving at the Great Hall, John was surprised to see King Oliver waiting for him. Immediately, John delivered the news to him, and King Oliver flew into a rage. He started stomping around the Great Hall, kicking up clouds of dust. He began to wreck his toys, biting into them and tearing them apart. As if that wasn't enough, he proceeded to throw all the past generations' heirlooms out of the Great Hall. His actions were crazy. Every rabbit could see it, but none could do anything about it. King Oliver's squire was confused about whether King Oliver's rage was over losing Nyla or losing the war. None of them dared approach King Oliver. They watched him, aghast, as he began to rant. "I will never forgive you, Jack. You took what was mine, and I will take her back no matter what the cost might be," King Oliver yelled. "I loved Nyla before you, but you used the fact that she is a member of your kingdom to steal her from me. Now, I'm going to get her once and for all. You will taste loss as you have never tasted before." John knew that King Oliver needed time to get himself together, and he ordered everyone to leave him alone. He hoped that the king would return to himself by morning. But King Oliver had already made a promise to himself. He's devised a plan which would enable him to drive King Jack away from the garden, placing both kingdoms under Oliver's rule. Then I would be able to have Nyla for myself, and no one would be able to stop me. I know she would learn to love me just as much as I love her, King Oliver said to himself. In the Dwarf Hotot kingdom, everyone was enthusiastically waiting for their beautiful queen to deliver her litter. Jack was expectant at Nyla's side, offering to fetch her anything she might need. "Are you feeling all right?" King Jack asked Nyla, who laughed. "Why are you laughing?" "You are making me laugh," Nyla replied. There was confusion on King Jack's face as he wondered what he had done to make his beautiful queen laugh. Sparing him further confusion, Nyla told Jack that she was all right, and there was no need for him to dote on her so. "But you might need something," King Jack replied. "Yes, and if I need anything, I will call out to you." King Jack didn't look convinced, and he told his queen that he was going to stay by her side, whether she needed anything. Nyla shook her head, telling King Jack that he had to attend to his court, to which he responded that they would go together. "What do you mean by we will go together?" Nyla asked. "We've always gone to the court together, and I don't expect anything to change." Nyla burst into laughter as she pointed towards her tummy, reminding the king that she was pregnant. "I haven't forgotten, and that is the reason why I'm suggesting that we go together," King Jack said. "That way you will be by my side, and I will be able to watch you should you need anything." "And there is no need for that," Nyla replied. "My sister is coming over, so I won't be alone." King Jack considered her words, then nodded as he hopped towards his queen and kissed her right on the head. He brought his face towards her tummy and started to sing to the babies. "My mother used to sing to me when I was a baby, and I learned how to sing from her. And you have a rather beautiful voice." King Jack's voice was melodious, and he continued to sing. Nyla joined him. She could feel one of her babies kick, and she told King Jack, who was excited and wanted to feel it. "Touch this spot," she said as she placed his hand over her stomach. At that moment, the baby kicked again, and King Jack was overwhelmed by excitement when he felt it. "I guess they really like my voice," King Jack said. "And you will be meeting them in a few days," Nyla smiled. "I hope to meet our babies soon." King Jack's eyes lit up. There was a knock on the door, and King Jack asked whomever it was to enter. One of his subjects walked in and told him that the court was already waiting for him to arrive. "Give me a minute, and I will join you," King Jack replied. Nyla told him to attend to the court, but King Jack was reluctant. He wanted to stay with his queen but knew he couldn't ignore the court. "When will your sister be arriving?" "Anytime now," Nyla replied. "She told me she would be here by morning." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door, and Nyla's sister Bella asked if she could come in. "Come in, Bella," Nyla said. The door opened, and Bella stepped in, greeting both King Jack and Nyla, her elder sister. The resemblance between them was undeniable. Bella was just as beautiful as her sister Nyla, but Jack only had eyes for his beautiful queen. "You look nice today," King Jack said. There was a smile from Bella as she thanked the king for her compliment. With Bella around, King Jack felt like his queen was in good hands, so he excused himself to go to the court. The judges of the Dwarf Hotot kingdom were pleased to see their king, and they all asked after the welfare of the queen. "She is feeling well today," King Jack replied. "Let's move on to today's matters so I can get back to her as soon as possible." The main topic for discussion was the fact that there were still concerns about what King Oliver of the Holland law. "He has already accepted defeat, and I don't believe he'll be making another move against us," King Jack said. "Yes, but we still need to let him know that we won't accept any hostile movements from him," one of the judges put in. There were still a lot of unresolved feelings within the citizens of the Dwarf Hotot kingdom. Understandably, they weren't pleased that King Oliver had tried to steal their queen. King Jack thoroughly understood how they felt, but he didn't think that there was any reason to hold it against King Oliver and Holland Lock Rabbits anymore. "I understand how you feel, but let's give peace a chance between us." There were murmurs from the judges who weren't as forgiving as their king, but King Jack made them understand that there was no need to fight. King Oliver had accepted that he had been defeated. In the end, the judges reconciled to their king's opinion, then asked if there were any other matters that needed to be settled. Usually, King Jack would go around his kingdom to settle things, but with the state Nyla was in at the moment, he had decided that he would do it in his court. The rest of the day was spent attending to the court's matters, and it wasn't until the evening that King Jack was done with the court. "Let me go and see my queen," King Jack said, making his way over to their room. When he arrived, he noticed that she was fast asleep. Bella told him that she had just fallen asleep a few minutes before he had returned. King Jack thanked Bella for staying with Nyla and told her he would stay with her now. Bella left. King Jack sat down beside Nyla's bed, watching her sleep, and since he was tired from the court's activity, he fell asleep soon too. He dozed for a few hours before being awaked by a rustling sound coming from outside. He glanced at Nyla, who was still fast asleep, and decided to investigate the source of the sound. Unbeknownst to Jack, King Oliver had sent some Holland soldiers who had used the cover of the night to sneak into King Jack's palace. When King Jack left the room, the 6 soldiers entered and carried Nyla out, ensuring that their paws were clamped firmly over her mouth. They kidnapped Nyla, but they knew King Jack was a good fighter. They didn't want him to raise the alarm, as King Oliver had promised to reward them should they succeed in bringing Nyla to him. The night sky was lush with the stars blinking down from the heavens. King Jack had been unable to find the source of the noise, but had admired how beautiful the night sky was. His thought had been to show it to Nyla when she woke so they might enjoy the beautiful scenery together. He headed back to the room and was surprised to discover Nyla's bed was empty. "Nyla, are you awake?" he asked. He looked around and noticed a few black and brown tufts of fur on the floor. Holland fur. Jack dreaded what that meant. He raised the alarm, asking the guards to search the entire palace for the queen. He looked out the window and spotted more fur, realizing that King Oliver had sent his soldiers to kidnap his queen. When Nyla woke up, she was being carried by the Holland soldiers. She knew exactly what that meant, and she panicked, fighting to break free from their hold. She didn't want to leave her husband, but the soldiers were far more robust than she. Her fright led to her going into early labor. The birth was premature, and Nyla hadn't pulled out her fur to make a nesting box for her baby. Since babies were born naked, the fur from her body would cover them until they grew fur of their own. Nyla begged the soldiers to let her pull her fur. Even if they had allowed it, it wasn't the only problem she faced. Nyla didn't have any milk to give her baby, which meant that the baby would grow hungry. As the soldiers hauled her onward, a baby fell on the ground, looking small and frail and hairless. "My beautiful girl," Nyla wailed as she stared at her baby. The Holland soldiers didn't seem to care one bit. They continued dragging Nyla on. She begged them to let her carry her baby, but they ignored her pleas and made it clear that the only thing King Oliver was concerned about her. Nyla watched as the baby curled up into a ball, protecting itself from the cold. The weather was relatively warm, but it was far too cold for a newly born kit. She needed her mother's fur to provide her with warmth. With Nyla being dragged away, the little baby was left to die with no one to take care of her. When dawn arrived, Lady May woke up, and while tending to her garden, she noticed a small kid on the ground. She wasn't sure what had happened or why the baby had been abandoned, but she knew that she had to do something to help it. The baby had managed to survive the night, which came as a surprise to Lady May, but she wasn't entirely out of the woods. Raising her by hand wasn't going to be as efficient as having a rabbit raise her. Lady May was conflicted as pondered which of the rabbits would be willing to foster the baby. She then remembered that Lucy had just delivered her litter of kids, and she would be the perfect foster mother for the baby. Lucy was a Holland lop rabbit, but in a way, she was different from the other Holland lop rabbits. She has the smallest ears and mouth in the entire kingdom, and an eccentric character. Picking up the kit, Lady May made her way over to Lucy's litter and placed the baby in the nesting box. Not every rabbit would be willing to foster another kit, but Lucy took to Nyla's baby immediately, ensuring that she was warm and comfortable. "You are a good girl," Lady May said to Lucy with a smile. She was immensely relieved that Lucy had accepted the baby. She knew that Nyla would be the mother, and she was a bit concerned about her health. Premature birth wasn't common in her garden, and she hoped that Nyla was okay. Lucy had a few litters of her own, but she still had enough space for one more baby. The nesting box was the perfect temperature for the baby who had been exposed to the cold right from birth. She was hungry, and Lucy, who was a healthy rabbit with enough milk, suckled her, ensuring that Nyla's baby was well fed. Lucy typically nursed 1 to 2 times a day, but she confirmed that Nyla's baby was okay before returning to her regular routine. The next day, Nyla's baby had gotten comfortable and had huddled with Lucy's kids in the nesting box. She was going to survive despite being born prematurely. On this peaceful night, may all beautiful dreams surround you, cradling you into a night of good sleep. Good night.